Just hit record.
Well, I did hit record, and I
We
didn't
need
think
to
that
meet
was,
up. We need
I-
to meet up one day.
I didn't think that was that dumb of a question. It was just like, hey, are we ready to do this podcast? Right?
No, but you specifically asked Polish Peter, is he ready? And I knew he's ready his whole life. I don't know why you didn't know that.
I don't think we got that on
I
our
wouldn't know that. Good
Oh.
call. All right.
This is good stuff.
Just start going. Yeah, let's go.
That's how we do it. That's how we do it. Hey, we got Polish Peter on tonight. This is filling this.
Yeah, Stu. I think Stu's freezing up on us.
No.
Stu, you there?
Yep.
Yeah, I'm here. Are you good? You got me?
All right.
We're still rolling.
Start pedaling a little bit
Yeah.
faster, dude.
Okay.
For
my
that
bad.
internet connection. Start pedaling a little faster.
This is starting out really fun. I don't even know where to go from here. We got Polish Peter on. What's up, Polish
Heck yeah.
Peter? How are
Hey
you?
guys, how are you? Are we recording?
Yes,
we are
we are.
recording, right?
We're recording, yeah.
I am so blessed to be here with you guys. I know we've been trying to get on this for a little while, and from what I've heard, and because I know you guys interviewed Steve Cook on here, and he told me great things about you guys, and I'm just freaking so excited to be here. So thanks for having me.
Yeah, we're excited to have you. I'll be honest, David and I have kind of become big fans of your podcast as well, the lifeonaire show, and we're ecstatic to have you on, and we'll talk lifeonaire. We got a long list of things to talk about. So if you could just for those that haven't listened to the show, and give our audience just a little bit of a background and kind of who you are and where you came from.
Well, I mean, as the accent probably give away that I'm not from United States.
You're not?
I'm actually from Texas. Texas, y'all.
Hey, man,
That's good.
I'm a Texan.
No, I was born in Poland. Came to United States when I was 14 years old, right off the plane, ended up in Michigan. Didn't speak any English a word. In fact, I remember when I was first learning English, it was, the language was like, so wait a minute, hold on a second here. Am I Polish or am I Polish? Which one am I? Because of the language. It's so kind of, it's about context. But as I started learning, went to college, got a degree in architecture, became an architect, did a lot of real estate development here in Michigan up until about 2008. And then the market crashed, especially here in Michigan. So I kind of foresaw it, and I always had this entrepreneurial bug in me. So I decided to start my own company. And so about from 2011 till about maybe 2012, 13, 2007 to about 2013, I ran a company that helped real estate investors and agents market their businesses and their houses on the internet using like internet marketing. And then, throughout this whole thing, I've had a lot of different things that I've learned. I failed in a lot of different things. In fact, I worked so hard and so many hours and did so many things that ended up costing my marriage. My wife, in about 2011, late at the end of 2010, came to me. She asked for divorce because I was basically not really there, because I was working like horse for my family because I have 3 kids. And so out of that, went into personal development because I had to figure out what the heck is going on. Because crazy thing about this is when I got divorced, my oldest daughter was 8 years old. My parents got divorced when I was 8. So I was like, wait a minute, is this a coincidence or is there something pattern or whatever it might be, right? So I went into the personal development, learning everything about human mind, psychology, what's going on up here in my own brain. And, out of that became a coach and got into lifeonaire and started, being in there and coaching and helping different things. And then we started running events. And now I run the podcast, the Lifeonaire Show with the CEO of Lifeonaire. And we're doing events and helping people grow and live their vision, what they truly want, not just, get stuck like I did and so many other people.
Yeah, there's so much there, Peter. And I would I kind of want to go, big, very general life in there, and then scope it down to you and we can intertwine however that works. But first, I really want to push your guys' show for all of our listeners out there. Lifeonaire, you have to check it out. Check out the book. If you've been listening to us for a while, you know that we interviewed the author of the Lifeonaire book, Steve Cook, previously. And this is the mastermind group that's built out of that as well. And so I really want to push and encourage people to listen to it, because there's so much amazing mindset stuff. There's so much amazing just growth content, and you're so focused, you specifically, with the mindset and the limiting beliefs and all of the stuff that I want to talk about here in a couple of minutes. But if you don't mind, just kind of give us the lifeonaire concept. Just give us a refresher of that, because I think it is so, it's funny. You maybe your ears were itching earlier, but I mention you guys all the time. And I was just talking to a kid outside of the dojo where my son does jujitsu, and we were talking about lifeonaire. And I'm like, hey man,
Wow.
this concept is amazing. Like, because we were talking mindset stuff, and it's the thing that
Yeah.
I'm constantly thinking about you guys. So if you don't mind, just talk a little bit about lifeonaire, and then we'll get specific down into what you do.
Sure, man. Well, first and foremost, man, I really appreciate it that you guys are talking about it, because, and I will tell you this, Steve is an amazing person. He's such a great heart. And if you ask him, and he probably shared this on this podcast and about the life on there, where is it and where they come from and all that kind of stuff, he'll tell you it didn't come from him, it came from the God above, right?
Yep.
And I think that is so important to actually distinguish, because life on there is about people. It's not about, what we do and how we do, but basic story of it is most people, they want to live their vision, quote unquote vision, right? But what ends up happening is how this, call it the system, how everything is set up, they end up working so many hours in the business that what they actually are going after gets set aside, gets put away, because they end up working 60, 70, 80 hours, and they get home and they're tired, right? So what we do in Life on Air is we reverse engineer this whole thing and say, listen, let's first talk about, what do you want your life to look like? What is your vision, right? Not just for the business. Actually, the business is the last thing that we talk about. But we ask you, like, what is it that you want your life to look like? What do you want your family life to look like? Your significant other, your needs, your wants, no regrets, your health, your spiritual life, all those different areas of your life. And we literally paint the picture of what you want that like to look like. And once you know that, then you ask the question, okay, so whatever that I'm doing financially, whether it's a business or working for somebody else, how do I use that to support that vision, to align with that vision, to help me fulfill on that vision? And when you start looking from that perspective, all of a sudden you find yourself, when we do those 3-day events, they're called Get a Life Giveaways. On day 3, we actually go through a calendar exercise, and most people find that once they fill their vision, the ultimate vision that they want to live, they have about 20, 25 hours a week to do the work, to do the business. And I will tell you, and I've done it myself, Vojo's doing it, and I will tell you it's totally doable. Because if you think about it, 40 hours a week, you guys are military people, so you know what it means to be intentional, what it means to be efficient, what it means to be persistent, right?
Right.
And most people are not really. So that 40 hours, you can totally just put it into 20, 25 hours and you start living your vision. So that's basically where it comes from and how we actually run this thing. And we see marriages transformed. We see relationship transformed. We see, people who haven't talked in 10, 15, 20 years, brothers, sisters, mom, dads, whoever, reconcile and get together. I mean, it's just,
That's
I
awesome.
mean, we get emotional just talking about it in there.
That's really awesome. Well, David and I, we're at about almost 19 years of military service and coming towards the end and looking at retirement through the military. But we've built this real estate business on the side, and right now it's kind of a second job. It's kind of another full-time job, and
Mm-hmm.
we're starting to really look at this, and we're starting to like take a lot of these concepts from Life and Air and really ask ourselves questions of, do we want to just leave the military and transition right into this other full-time job of flipping houses and
Yeah.
doing real estate, or do we really need to take a step back and really take a look at what we want our life to look like after we retire from the military? And we still got young kids. I got a 6-year-old and a 3-year-old, and he's got a 10, what is this, 10, 7, 4.
Yes, sir.
And so that's important to us. And so, I'm curious, and you kind of mentioned it at the beginning, where you're kind of in the grind too. Like you're an entrepreneur, you're building a business, you're working hard, building it all out, trying to work hard for your family, but something got away from you. And if you could kind of like, what was that like aha moment where you're like, what am I doing? Like,
Well, the aha moment, what am I doing, is when my wife, I came home one night from, I just did a RIA. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the RIA is, but Real Estate Investment Association. I did a talk at that, and I was selling my course I had at the time.
Yeah.
And that was my best event to date at that time. So I was like cloud nine, I'm driving home and I'm excited and I'm telling her, wow, this is awesome. And I get home and she's very quiet, she doesn't want to say much. She doesn't want to talk about it. And I'm probing, right? Poking the bear, right? And tell me, what's the problem? What's the problem? What's the problem, right? Finally, she's like, you know what the problem is? I'm like, uh-oh, poke the bear too much, And I thought it was, regular marriage thing, right?
Right.
And she says, I want a divorce. That moment, man, it totally shook me to the core. And I'm like, well, something's got to change. But at that point for her, she was already checked out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? When she said that. So that was the big aha moment for me. And from that point on, I was trying to save my marriage for the next 6 months. Like, no, but that business that I had went out the window because I went all in to try to save the marriage. And, she was already not there in the marriage. But that was, like a blessing in disguise, because I found out so many things about me, about people. And now I believe that, there was a plan for that. And I get to help other people and see them and fight for them so they don't go down the same road, So.
Yeah.
Wow, that's super powerful. And so how did that, you went from, and just listening to the podcast, I know some of your story and just how you took this, and again, your mindset, you take these setbacks and you turn them into these very positive things, and you see the blessing in them, and you take action on that. But in the moment, how did that step go from the divorce and the aha moment, this very low place, to lifeonaire and coach, and
Okay.
how did that happen?
Well, it's very interesting, because if I look in the way back in the day, that was all, I feel like it was a part of the plan. Because so when she said she wants a divorce, right, I at that particular point knew a very not powerful, famous real estate guru. Her name is Wendy Patton. You guys might know her. She is like a lease options queen, and I've known her personally. She's from Michigan. And one day I was just talking with her, and I was talking about what's going on with me and things like that. She goes, you know what? I actually know the guy that I'm in a group with that went through something similar as you. And if you want, I can, put you guys in contact. Maybe you guys can come up with something. Maybe you guys can help each other out, And so I'm like, okay, sure. So I called a guy, and that's Jason Vojo. And we've been talking ever since. We're like, like boyfriend. He's the girlfriend, I guess. But now he got
That's
married.
just like
so
me and Stu.
I was about
Stu's the wife.
So Stu's the wife? Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And you beat me to it. I was going to say the same thing. Dang
So you got to jump on it, right?
No, Stu.
You gotta
If you
jump on
notice,
it, David.
if you notice what Stu just said, he said he was going to say the same thing. He was going to admit that he's the wife.
Yeah.
I got nothing.
Well, the problem is that Vojo got married, so he obviously cheated on me, and all that stuff, right? But on the serious side of things, when I started talking to him, and he kind of coached me through some of the things, then through him, I ended up being in one of the masterminds in the groups. And as I was sitting in the room, and I would, listen to people talk, and I've been already at that particular time, I was doing all kinds of trainings and learning about, human mind and all that kind of stuff. Tony Robbins, right? He's a big mentor of mine, and he just doesn't know it.
Yeah,
but
that guy's awesome. He's a mentor to everybody.
But I've done so many things from his trainings. It's unreal. And so I would be the guy who was constantly asking questions and poking and prodding and asking the why. And people were coming along, man, why don't you be a coach? You should be a coach. You should be a coach. They're asking me for help. So that's how it ended up being in the coaching. So I feel like that was all part of the plan and just evolved, you know?
That's really cool. So, talk like, so on the coaching side of things, what are, what is kind of like your primary focus when you're coaching people? Is it that mindset?
Yeah, mindset. Because whenever somebody gets into my program, one of the things that we need to get right is the mindset, because that's 95% of the problem. People want, let's say in business, they want to know the strategies, they want to know the task, they want to know the system, right? But the thing is, those are pretty universal. I mean, there's no rocket science really with that. But you got to get this right, because think about it, especially if you're an entrepreneur, you are the one in charge of that business, in charge of yourself. So if the business is not working like you would like it to, guess whose reason for that is? It's you. And guess what is going up here? It's the mindset. So most of the conversations at the beginning is mindset, unfolding and breaking down the limiting beliefs, the blind spots. I call them blind spots because if you think about it, when you're driving the road, driving down the street, and you have a blind spot in your mirror, right? And you don't see it. If there's a car in the blind spot, you don't see that car until something shifts, right? Whether that car moves forward or back, or you speed up, or you start merging and he honks, something shifts. And in that very moment, like this, you see that car in the blind spot, and then you make different choices. So the thing with those blind spots and those limiting beliefs is that we don't see them. They're just running in the background. And when we start uncovering those, then we start being, present to them. And we're like, what? I never thought about it. If you guys want, I can give you an example about me.
Yeah, let's do it.
Please do.
Up until my, 30s, late 30s, and you guys are going to laugh. I did not know, and you could tell me, and my ex-wife was telling me this, but I didn't even hear it, but I did not know I was a people pleaser. I was a huge people pleaser, and that stemmed from when I was 8 years old, when I was a kid. And what that did is, think about it, people pleaser will say yes to everybody and anybody, right?
Right.
And the one who's not going to have time is me, myself, but I'm going to say yes, 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 yes. How do you think that works out in the business? Not very well.
Right.
How do you think it works out in marriage? Not very well. How do you think it works out in all kinds of different situations, right? So, and I didn't know it until I finally, somebody like, dude, and when that uncovered, now I can actually put boundaries. I can be present to it. I can know, okay, this is the one moment that I'm trying to please somebody. So I need to, make sure that I don't do that. And I put boundaries in place to make sure that it works. And that has helped me tremendously to grow my business and help other students as well.
Yeah, that's a great example. And I think, a lot of us, I know for a long time I struggled with that, and you're overcommitting so much that you are not truly committing to anybody. And when you're that kind of person that likes to bring all these different groups together, what I came to realize is that I was hurting people.
Yeah.
I was not hurting, but hurting.
Yeah.
And so, like, in my attempt to bring everybody together and be able to hang out with all these folks, there were people that felt that they were not getting, and they weren't. It's not that they weren't feeling it. They were right that they were not getting that full attention or that full moment that we should have shared. And I wanted to invest in each and every one of them. And it's an important. I think it's very important to notice that, and to distinguish the difference. And so that's very powerful. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, totally. I mean, just one silly thing, man. And I know you guys are military, so you understand it. Being on time. People pleaser is never on time, or barely ever on time, right? And I just started incorporating that just one thing into my life, just being in time. And that has had tremendous impact. Now, many times clients would say, man, I really appreciate the fact that you're on time. And I'm sure you guys probably get something like that similar, because it's very uncommon to find that, So
it shows respect, right? It shows
Yeah.
it shows that you respect that person's time. And that's one thing that I always highlight to my junior sailors is you have control over a couple things. One, it's military, so your PT, being physically fit, you're 100% control, and being on time. And those two things are game changers to potentially your career. I think that's huge.
Yeah. So does Stu live up to that?
I have to I have to carry him on my back and drag him into things. Like, tell you what,
Hey Peter, if you believe that, no, Stu is a he's a very good yin to my yang. Hey, but before we leave the mindset, I want to ask you one question. So I'm a huge mindset guy. Like I desire to understand it. I'm reading the mindset book right now by Carol, I don't remember her last name. Dweck. And just to help me contextualize, and it creates a framework for, like I was watching my daughter the other day and I'm like, oh, that's a fixed mindset that she just displayed there, and I need to address that. And it's really helpful. But I have a hard time, like when you're talking in the context of business and helping people understand, or not even business, but just career and helping people understand that mindset is so powerful. I have a very hard time like quantifying that, because it's not like, well, if you have this mindset, you'll make $1 million, right? It's hard to grasp. I'm just kind of curious how you, not only in your studies of it, but when you coach people to mindset, like how do you quantify that for them? Does that make sense?
Trying to understand what you're saying, how you quantify, like
how is it not so,
does it works, or
how is it not so squishy? It's always seems very squishy to me, right? Like people that want concrete ideas and concrete implementation and action items. Mindset is a hard thing to
like it's foo-foo kind of stuff.
Yeah,
is that what
exactly.
you're saying? Yeah, I get that, man. I mean, that comes across a lot of times because it's not something you can touch. It's not something that you can see. It's not something that you can feel it because you have feelings, right? But yeah, I totally get that. And the way we do that is obviously by incorporating, when you have a mindset shift, or whatever it is you may have, right? I always bring some kind of an action with it. And I want them to take some kind of an action about that, even if it's something little, so they can start see how that actually translates into that mindset stuff. So it's not squishy, right? I'll give you an idea. For instance, mindset. When language is a very powerful way that deals with mindset, right? Because in English language, every single word in English language has some kind of a meaning to it. And that can have both good meanings and bad meanings, right? If I say I'm pissed, do you see what kind of a meaning that has for someone, especially when they're in a very kind of an angry state, right? When the blood's boiling and you say, I'm pissed, right? And you start, and then starts to boil and starts to build one on top of each other, right? And then before you know it, your whole situation is out the window, right? Because you're just all over the place. However, if you just change that one word and say something like, I'm tickled, you can't even hold your face straight, right?
Yeah.
Like
it totally breaks that state, right? Totally breaks your whole being angry, whatever, right? So if you're in the anger and you stuck before that, you start thinking, okay, whenever I get into that position, get into that, space of being that mad, and my interaction, my first thing is I'm pissed. I'm going to try to start saying I'm tickled. And you'll see how that's going to start breaking your state. Because it's kind of like a foo-foo word, but it doesn't have that same meaning. You know what I mean? Yeah. And we are, like human beings, we are like meaning-making machines, man. We make meaning about everything.
Yeah.
Somebody looks, somebody says something, somebody, even about ourselves, right? So we always make meanings. So might as well make meaning that's going to support you, that's going to help you, as opposed to that's going to, tear you down.
That awesome. That was a perfect example. That's awesome. I'm gonna, because I struggle with that. I'm gonna start implementing, because I spin very quickly. I'm an emotional Latino kind of guy, and there's some of that. And even when you say these nuggets are huge. One thing that just recently, I'm 41 years old, and I've just recently started to get over. Growing up, looking at somebody was always a thing, right? Like if someone caught your eye, you hold the eye, and you're like, oh, are you challenging me? Like just very quickly it goes to that, right? And that's just from, I don't know if that's a cultural thing or the way I was raised with my dad or whatever. He's always had a very short temper, and I think it's really interesting you say that, because I always admired people that they'd look and they'd look away and like, oh, whatever. It has no, like Stu is the type of person that would never bother him.
Well, him looking into somebody's eyes.
Well, just like if someone were to look at him and like go like that, like he'd maybe look and look away and move on. Whereas I'm like, oh, that person is just looking at, that is challenging.
Stare me down. You stare me down.
Yeah. And I think it's just an interesting, that's what you highlighted is the power of mindset to change. And that literally can change somebody's life. And I think that's huge.
I did something similar at one of our 3-day Gear Life Getaway events. There was a gentleman sitting in the front row. And at the end of day 2, I challenged them to go do one little thing, just one little thing. And we talked about mindset and stuff like that, right? One gentleman took on the whole thing about road rage, right? Because he had big road rage, right? And the next day he came back and he was so excited. I'm like, what's going on? So I brought the mic and I asked him, what's happening, man? And he's like, you won't believe what happened today. I'm like, what? Well, I was driving over here and I did not have road rage, and the guy completely cut me off. Usually I would show him the bird and all kinds of stuff, but I was just, hey, maybe the guy, all of a sudden something's not right. And it will happen for him. He changed the perspective, because I talked about, what if that other person is literally driving to the hospital because he's got his wife in the backseat and she's, or whatever the case may be, right? Or he just found out something and he's totally in distress. Or he could be a total jerk, right? Still, but you don't know what the other person's life is like, right? And where you focus, right? One of the things that I've constantly used and I share with my students is the quote that I learned from Tony Robbins, and that is, where focus goes, energy flows. So where you're focusing on, where you're putting your attention at, that's where your energy is going to be going. So if you focus on like, this is bad, this is bad, this is bad, guess what? You're going to have bad energy, right? If you focus on this is good, this is good, this is good, this guy is helping, this guy is good, this guy is, or all that kind of stuff, you're going to start getting some good energy. You're going to start feeling happier and all kinds of stuff.
So it's interesting. I had a phone call, I guess about 2 days ago, with an author of a book that we're talking. She's going to come talk to our mastermind group, and I think we're going to try to get her on our podcast as well. And it was the first conversation. Never met her before. Never talked to her before. And there's always that kind of like that awkward first like introduction on the phone of trying to kind of figure out how the conversation is going to go. And the first, like she answered the phone and she was super nice and bubbly. And the first question she asked was, what was the best part about your day before you got on the phone with me? And I was kind of taken aback. I was like, I don't know, but that's awesome. And I had to think about it for a second. And I thought about like something that happened. And I was like, you know what? It was when my son came down and like came into my office in the morning and gave me a big hug and a snuggle before I was, getting ready for work. And she's like, I love that. And like, that's how we started the conversation. And from there, it was just positive and it was awesome. And like, just that language, just that first question, that breaking the ice question was just like, it was so awesome. And like, I'm going to use that. That's awesome. And it's a total mindset thing. It's just the language that you're talking about. It's great. So, you talked about blind spots and these limiting beliefs. And, I'm curious how you see those. Like, do you have to have someone call you out on them, or like, and how do you get over those once kind of, what they are?
Well, so I have this, I'm not even going to make the joke. Never mind. So no, how I see those blind spots is with questions. I just constantly ask questions, ask a lot of questions. When I'm sitting with my student or somebody, I just start asking a whole bunch of questions, and one of the most powerful questions, ready for this? Yeah. Why? Think about it. Nobody, people are like, well, I can't seem to be able to go to the gym. Why? Well, because it's raining outside, and and I don't know, I feel kind of sad, when it's raining outside. Why? Well, because when I'm sad, I start thinking about this, and I start thinking about that, and start thinking about this. Why? When you start asking that kind of a question, all of a sudden you start seeing and hearing things that this person is going to tell you. Sometimes they're going to say something like, well, because I just hate being alone. Right. And all of a sudden you start seeing, well, like, wow, okay. Because here's the thing, every single human being, deep down underneath it all, deals with two big fears. One is, am I enough? And the other one is, am I loved? And that's what it comes down to. So all the different things that we do and say and try to do, try not to do, is basically comes down to the underlying question, whether it happens consciously for some people or some people subconsciously. That's, am I enough? Am I enough? Is this enough? Am I good enough? Am I good enough? Am I good enough? Right? And when they start asking that question, they got to be careful, because the brain is always going to give you the answer. Because the brain is like a computer. You put something in, you'll get something out. You put garbage in, you'll get garbage out, right? You put good stuff in, you're going to get good stuff out, right? So it's always going to give you an answer. And how does it know that answer? It knows it from your past experiences, from your past, schooling, learning, whether it's from teachers, parents, society, whatever it might be, right? So if you ask a question, you're going to get the answer. So if you ask a question, why has this always happened to me? And from your past experiences, because you told yourself that, well, because I'm not good enough, or I'm too stupid to figure it out, or whatever, that's the kind of answer you're going to be getting, So you got to be very conscious and protective of this thing, because it could be the best friend or the worst nightmare kind of thing, And unfortunately for some people, that ends up being that, But so I ask a lot of questions, I probe, I poke, and it comes. Here's the thing that's important to recognize is all that has to come from a place of love and no judgment. Because once you have judgment in there, then you're not going to be able to see it. People are not going to be telling you the stuff. So it's a very kind of a sacred thing that you have to have, because otherwise people are not going to come to you. Same thing with like kids, man. I have 3 kids myself. I know you guys have both kids. There is that line where we got to look at and like, okay, I want to make sure that the kids come to me for whatever, especially in today's world, right?
Yeah.
So they got to know they're not going to be judged by the parents, because otherwise I don't think they're going to be coming to you to share you different things, right? And it's a fine line, because sometimes they'll do something really stupid. And how can you like, dude, what were you thinking, right? Especially when they're older.
Yeah.
But you got to be very protective and very present and conscious to how the words that come out of your mouth and what you do, And then when you say something stupid, you got to own up to it, even with your own kids, So
Yeah, wow, that's awesome. So how do you kind of rewire that computer when you get, when you encounter people that are they have those limiting beliefs, or they don't believe that they're enough, or they don't believe that they're loved? Like, how do you rewire that? How do you, as a coach, instill in them that level of significance and importance?
Right. That's a great question, man, because it's one of those things that people a lot of times like, well, I'm already 40, or I'm already 60, or I'm already 80. This brain ain't changing, right? The thing with that is the brain is constantly changing. They're scientifically proven that your neurotransmitters are constantly changing. They're new ones, especially when you're learning and doing stuff, they're always firing some neurons, right? Neurotransmitters and all that kind of stuff. So the steps are basically, the first, you gotta recognize that you can actually change that belief, or you can shift it. I'm not talking about so much it's changing, because you don't really need to change, because if you think about it, there was a time in your life when you were maybe 5, 6, and 7 years old where you were just fearless, especially boys, right? Man, give a 6-year-old boy, 6-year-old or 5-year-old boy, you see any of them being fearful or anything? No, they just go and do whatever it takes, right?
Right.
I mean, and then somebody said something to them, and all of a sudden, oh, I gotta watch what I say or do, and then all of a sudden these walls start to build up. So the first thing is being aware of what that is and believing that you can actually shift to be able to do that, right? And then the next step is basically starting to wire a new path and start to abandon the old path. Because if you think about it, at one point you had no path about something, let's say, not good enough, right? I will give you guys an example. When I first came here to the United States and I started learning English, the accent, I hated it. Hated my accent. Thought I was stupid, thought people didn't recognize me, didn't believe me, couldn't understand me. I think you guys probably right now, what the hell is he saying? But hey, it's all good, right?
No, man, it's Texan. You're good.
Yeah.
That's right. Transcripts are on the back table, right? But I did not like my, accent. And I finally came to recognize how I was starting to build this belief, this neural pathway of my accent is stupid and people don't really like it, don't listen to it. And I would give you guys proof. I would call a cable company and I would get on the phone. This is when I was still married. Get on the phone to dispute some kind of a bill. I would be over there 20 minutes angry, like trying to tell the guy what to say, what to do. And the guy, by the way, and I would say, freaking boulder. And guess who's a boulder, right? Me. And the other guy had an accent. So both of us are going at it, right? And he's like, I don't want to deal with that guy, right? So nothing gets solved. And I put my wife on the phone. She was born here. And 5 minutes, she got it solved like that. I'm like, see, there's your proof, right? There is the proof. But you start to find all kinds of proof.
Yeah.
You'll find proof for the bad things. And if you start rewiring to look for creating a new neural pathway, you're going to start finding the proof for the good things. That's going to, reinforce it. So it starts with the simple steps. You just start building on that new belief that you want to have. And you start building on it. And then you keep going down that path. And I believe that what ends up happening in a way is, that old neural pathway about, let's say, my accent, it was like a freaking highway. And now I'm building this slow, small, little, just a walk. And if I keep walking down that walk over and over and over again, before you know it, it's going to be a highway and the old one's going to be abandoned. And that's how you rewire things. Sometimes for some people it's instantaneous because there is such a powerful emotional thing that happens that they literally ultimately, stop. Like, you ever seen anybody quit like just like that, like say smoking?
Yeah.
Something traumatic happens, whatever, just quit like that, right? So that's like instantaneous. Like they get disgusted by it or whatever, right? And I've done this with some students. But most of the time, it's this progressive thing that you constantly have to take steps. Look at you guys are both military. You've been through boot camps, right? How you build a muscle? It doesn't happen overnight, right? You go over and over and over and increase the weight and you keep going and you train it and, and you look in yourself in the mirror and it's like, oh, I'm looking good, right? And then you keep going forward and forward. So, but
I don't think Stu's qualified to answer that question.
Hey, not he got through the boot camp, right?
You did. I got through the boot camp just fine. Yep.
You did.
Smoked David in about probably everything that we had.
It's true.
So, well, that's how it works, basically.
Yeah.
And you gotta be persistent, man. When you want to change the belief, and you're gonna fall back in here, but you gotta keep getting up, right? It's not about how many times you get knocked down, right? Yeah. It's how many times you keep getting up, and before you know it, you're gonna have the new belief.
What if you have a business partner and you want to try to change his belief?
So this is like husband or a wife trying to change the husband or vice versa?
Yeah.
So you're the wife trying to change the husband?
No.
Well, good luck with that, man.
Exactly.
Oh, man.
Well, I will tell you this, man, on serious side of things, because I have couples in coaching, right? And I'll have, wife and a husband, and whether the wife comes to a call or the husband comes to a call and say, listen, can't believe what my wife did or my husband did. Can you do something with that person or whatever, or change them or whatever? I'm saying, listen, that's great. But guess what? Who's on the call with me right now? It's you. So let's talk about you and your beliefs and what you got going on, because this is just your own perspective. He's got his perspective. You got your perspective. So a lot of times in the conversation, when at the end of the conversation, they're like, you know what? I can see why, Stu's the way he is. And I can see why David's the way he is, and then all of a sudden relationships starting to change. Because listen, in physics, right? For every action, there is what? Equal and opposite reaction, right?
Reaction.
So in relationships, over time, if you've been together, how long you guys been married, you two, with each other?
24 years.
24 years, right? So you guys pretty much know how the other person is and all that kind of stuff, right? So there's polar opposites kind of thing, right? And that's a lot of times works. Polarity needs to be there.
Right.
But what happens is all of a sudden, if you start changing, shifting something, the other person will shift too. That's why in marriages, when all of a sudden a husband starts to do different things, like taking his wife on dates and being present to her and things like that, all of a sudden the relationship starting to change. Go figure, right? And the other person have nothing to do with it. We have a lot of people come to our events who are just husband or just the wife. And they go home and they do whatever they do, and all of a sudden the relationship starts to change. The other person has nothing to do with it.
Right.
But it just needs to be one person, right? So
that's good.
Wow.
Let's talk about kind of back to the beginning when you're talking about starting with a vision.
Mm-hmm.
I think probably for a lot of us, like even creating a life vision can be really difficult. How do you start that, and what does that really look like? What does a life vision look like?
Yeah, it is difficult, man. I'm glad you brought it up, because a lot of people, they do struggle with that, because that's like one of the questions that they never ask themselves.
Yeah.
What do I really want my life to look like? And some people are actually afraid to actually look at it that way, right? Because maybe they've been disappointed over the life. So the way we do it is we basically have you different exercises. And one of the exercises that you can do, both of you guys have kids, right? So this will be a great exercise for someone like you, is ask yourself this: what would you want your kid's life to look like? Like really, if you could have this genie, call him Polish Peter, and this genie comes to you and say, hey, listen, guys, I will grant you any kind of wish when it comes to your kids. You just tell me exactly what you want your kid's life to look like. And all of a sudden you start painting that vision for that kid. And guess what? That vision is basically what you want ultimately, right? And that's how you start creating that vision. So I kind of revealed some of the exercises that we do with the events, but that's one of those exercises, because some people can't, especially the people who have a hard time envisioning their own vision. We have like, a kid. Maybe you don't have any kids. Maybe you have a niece. Maybe you have a kid that you like. Maybe you know a kid that you like, right? Yeah. So what would you want that kid life to look like? And they start painting a picture. Well, I would want them to travel. I would want them to do this. I want them to do this. Well, let's ask a different question. If you could have any day, what would the perfect day be for you? What would you do if you had a perfect day? How would you live that day? Paint that the whole day, and you start seeing you get up and you do what? I don't know, drink coffee or sit in pajamas all day, or you go on vacation, or you do whatever, right? Yeah. Sit on the beach, that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
It does, and I think, and I listened to one of your podcasts when you were talking to one of your guests, and I forget his name, but you were talking about first, and this was me too. Like when I was trying to think about like what my life was going to look like, it was very bullet style, like bullet here, bullet here, bullet here, and your guest was talking about like, no, write almost like a story, like in a paragraph. And I was like, yeah, that's really cool. And he kind of read his, and I was like, that's awesome. So like, I'm trying to, rethink how my vision would look like in kind of a story format. So
right.
I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, that works a lot better. You know why that is, writing a story?
Why?
We were raised on stories. We live by stories, right? Think about when you were a kid and your parents read you a book. Was it bullets? They read you bullet points? Bullet points? No, read your story, right? So that resonates. That paints a better picture.
Yeah.
Bullet points are like to-do lists, right?
Right.
So, yeah, that's
Stu,
awesome, man.
Stu's mom still reads him books at night. So
Green Eggs and Ham.
yeah, it's a great book. by
Love
the way.
Dr.
Great book.
Seuss.
Doctors, I know. I used to love it because with my accent, it was easy for me to read it to my kids. You know, just rolled off my tongue.
That's awesome. One of the things you touched on earlier that I want to revisit as well. So yeah, I think a lot of times folks may think that, and I think this is a problem in the military as well, that you have to put in the hours equal productivity and it equals success. And if you don't mind, just kind of highlight some of these different entrepreneurial ventures that you currently have going on or that you've done, and how you accomplish those in, would you say 20 to 25 hours a week is what you have left to do all those. If you don't mind, just kind of highlight some of the things that you're doing in those 20 to 25 hours a week, because I think it'll be very insightful to our listeners to know that, hey, you can actually live your vision and do the things that are most important and still have all this other awesome stuff that you're doing on.
Okay. Well, I appreciate you saying that. By the way, that's one of the limiting beliefs, which you just said, that the amount of work that you put in is what you're going to get out, right?
Yep.
Because tell that to someone like Jeff Bezos and see what he tells you. This guy makes probably what, 1 billion an hour?
Yeah.
Right. And there's so many different, people that, the difference needs to happen where that mentality, what you just said, is I work for the money, as opposed to starting like, how can money work for me? And when you start having that mindset, that shift, how can I have money work for me? You start asking different questions. Well, how could I do that? What could I do? Right. So for instance, like me, I have students, and I have 2 masterminds, and they have calendar, access to my calendar, and they book calls, and I, for about 10, 15 hours a month, I have coaching calls in the entire month, sometimes 20 hours, right? So that's one thing. Second thing that I do is I run the events with Jason that we do, throughout the country. And the way that works is we go there for 3 days, but the exponential value out of that event translates to, different products, to having new people in the company, right? To getting new students, that kind of stuff, right? I also invest in different businesses. So the way it works is, for instance, last year when the market crashed, I went and invested in some businesses, the ones that I'm looking at, okay, if I were to follow the government, because government has a plan, let's just think about it. Government has a plan. Let's see what kind of a plan do they have that they want to roll out in the future, because that's why they make different policies, right? That's something for the future.
Right.
Well, one of them something to do with oil, let's say, or something to do with the energy, right? Or something to do with whatever, right? So invest in companies that I foresee that in the future may and do well, right? So there is a calculated risk that comes with it, right? So I do that. And then one other thing is I sometimes lend money to other people. So like real estate investors, for instance, right? People who are looking to flip houses. You guys are flipping houses, right? So you guys are aware of private money is, right?
Yep.
That's money working for me.
It's all you.
Right. So money working for me, and I don't actually go and do this. But the important thing is recognizing that belief and then flipping that script and asking, how can I have money working for me? How can I have money working for me 24 hours a day when I'm sleeping, right? And sometimes it's kind of like a foo-foo kind of a thing, right? Because like with internet marketing, you can do that, when you build a funnel or whatever it might be. But when you start asking that question and start asking, okay, what am I really good at? How can I have the money work for me? And how can I get other people on board to help me do that? Because guess what, guys? This life is a team sport. That's one big lesson that I learned years ago. It's a team sport. It's not an individual sport.
Love that.
And when I did it all by myself, I struggled. When
Yeah.
I finally give up that ego of having other people help me out, whether it's in my mastermind, whether it's listening to other people, whether it's having them on my team, all of a sudden things started working much better. Make sense?
It does.
Yeah, it does.
Oh.
So we've asked another guest this, who we were asking about lending. Since you're a lender, would you ever be interested in lending like really, really cheap money, like really low interest rates to people like us to flip houses? Just putting you on the
This is
spot here.
cool. You're gonna have to consult with my attorneys and my team.
like really low interest rates, like
Like
almost
really
free.
low interest rate.
Yeah.
Well, if I have a bunch of złoty, the Polish money, I can lend it to you for very low interest.
Nice.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
We can talk.
That's awesome.
It's good. We got it recorded, so it's good.
That's how you see. He's not. Listen, he's smarter than he looks, doesn't he?
Right?
Yeah, way
Yeah.
smarter than he looks for sure.
Yeah.
Oh, Peter, this is good stuff, man. I really appreciate you coming on. I learned a lot tonight, and it's been a fun conversation. How could people get in touch with you and kind of, if they want to dive into some of your coaching or kind of maybe get involved with lifeonaire? What's the best way to get in touch with you?
Well, lifeonaire, we have a free app where you can literally go to either Google the store or the Apple store and just look up lifeonaire. Again, on the app, I'm on there. You can just reach out to me.
Okay.
Polish Peter. You can just search in there and find me on there. There you go. Yep.
There it is.
That's it. That's what it looks like. That's what the logo looks like. And if you just want to have, listen, one of the things that I've been blessed to be able to do is God gave me this brain to be able to help people, to be able to poke in their minds and help them uncover certain things. So I decided a few months ago that I'm going to start with no obligation, no catch, no nothing, just giving one of those free sessions to anybody who wants to. So if you look at, there's like a oneconversationaway.com. If you go to that link,
Okay.
just fill out a short form and we can jump on the call. There is no obligation for anything. Just want to give back and help people out, because when they get this breakthrough, all of a sudden, things start happening in their life, and they maybe do different things, and start. And if I help them, maybe they'll want to do business with me and be in my mastermind. Got 2 of them.
Love it. I love that.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's great.
Hey, Peter, one of the things that I love about this show is Stu and I spend a lot of time trying to get people that on the show that, one, we think will add huge value to our network, but also, we basically get these free mentoring sessions, and I just want to encourage you briefly. As one of my favorite things to do is just encourage folks like you, because you don't really realize it or recognize it, but you've been a huge encouragement to Stu and I. I know that people who listen to this will gain tremendously. Your heart for the Lord, your heart for serving others, helping others, coaching others is very apparent through your podcast with you and Wojo. Not only is it entertaining, but the information there is invaluable. I started from the very beginning and listened in the first 4 episodes, I think, or the 4 steps that Steve ran through with you guys. And I would just say that you guys are adding huge value, but you're transforming lives. People, as you highlighted, their relationships are getting better, whether that's with the Lord, whether that's with their spouse, their business partner, family members, and you guys just pour into folks. And we are super excited to continue the conversation with you guys, to join Lifeonaire. We're just ecstatic that you would join us, and thank you again for your graciousness and being flexible, and through my scheduling difficulties. You showed nothing but grace and class. So thank you very much for that, and just spending time with us. You're awesome.
You're welcome, man. Pleasure is all mine, and I'm so grateful. I appreciate you saying that, man. Seriously, it means a lot to me, because sometimes, you don't see it. So I appreciated that you said that, and I love the fact that I got to connect with you guys, get to know you guys. I feel like we're gonna meet again in person, and it's gonna be pretty cool to get together with you guys.
Absolutely, it's gonna be awesome.
Absolutely. Well, folks, Go check out Polish Peter. Go to oneconversationaway.com. Go read lifeonaire. Get involved. Get the app. It's a fantastic organization. Listen to their podcast. Peter and Wojo are awesome. They're much funnier than we are. Hey, subscribe to this podcast. Share it. Give Polish Peter 5 stars.
Not Vojo, just me.
Yeah, just you.
Or him.
Dude, Wojo, I don't know if that dude's like a bodybuilder. That dude's a big dude. So you better watch out, Stu. That dude is, I had to Google him because I was like, dang, he's a big boy.
He won, I think, Miss Universe at one point.
That's good. You're gonna have to share. You're gonna have to share this episode with them, and so you can listen to you making fun of him.
I know. I do it right in front of his face. So
there you go. There you go.
That's good.
All right, well, folks. Thanks for listening, and hey, go fill your storehouse.
And make it a great day, friends. Thank you.
Thanks, Peter. See you.